This isn't just for kids.
We are live.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Hello,
Hello.
Sarah.
Hi, Santi. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day.
Happy Hump Day.
I
Yes.
like hump day. It's like the middle of the week. I didn't even know what day it was. That's why Sarah texted me and she's like, "Hey, I'm online whenever you are." And I'm like, "Oh crap!" I was teaching my daughter how to do a back walk over, which I don't know how to do. I'm not a gymnastics expert or anything like that. But because we do movement, which we're going to talk about today, we
Mhm.
just figure it out, we break it down, and then we helped her do it. So it took about 10 minutes. She was able to
Absolutely.
do it, right? And I'm not no gym expert, but that's what I feel like what we do as primary care physical therapists and what we're trying to instill in this group is to stop feeling like you need a certification or a book or some evidence-based practice to do the thing and help your people and really
Mhm.
start using your brain again and using your creativity like we talked about in the past. So
Oh,
and just break down
yes.
the movement, which I know we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. So I'm going to share an example of how I emphasize human movement. But before we jump into, what are these foundational concepts that we're taking into these case studies, for example, Santi, how do you define what you're looking for or the creativity that you're infusing when you're considering human movement and being specific around human movement?
Well, one thing that I learned in school that I didn't appreciate was when we were learning about development in pediatrics. And of course, a lot of times in school, we brief through some of those developmental stages, and then we try to focus on like the treatment of all the different diagnoses. Like this is the diagnosis, this is this problem, this problem means that this is what's wrong. And here what the evidence says about how to treat it and things like that, right? But it was very little about like how to apply it. It was just you needed to learn the 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 stages and then you pass the test and it was like okay cool and that was it, right? And if the baby isn't at this level, then we can look at these different things that could be going wrong and maybe here's some strategies that you can do. But unless you went on into pediatrics or you went into or that was your interest, it was like poof gone, right?
Mhm.
But what I realized is that that is part of the because I treat the nervous system and once I realized that I'm like holy crap, like literally all of these patterns of movement, those foundational patterns, are ingrained in our nervous system. And if I can tap into that in order to help my geriatric person, my athlete, return to more efficient, quote unquote, human movement, um, then I started getting amazing results. And we'll give an example of like how I was able to do that. So that's a major thing that I want you all to think about is that those stages are extremely important and will completely change the way that you can approach the way you treat your clients. And you'll have to be creative because then you're like, how do I put them in these developmental positions to help get the range of motion out of that stiff shoulder or get the stability out of that hip or get the balance back or get the vestibular system to work better, right? Like all of these things are part of development, but we just never think of it that way.
Absolutely. And I was one of those individuals who actually started my career in pediatrics. So I was seeing a lot of these little, like, 3-month olds and up that were learning all of these developmental gross motor milestones. And I was having to help them learn how to position, to practice being in prone or practice being in quadruped or practice, rolling and all these things. And by doing that, like I was fortunate to have seen it in that habilitation stage and now to bring it to my adult population and put them back in these essentially same positions. They're like, oh, this is so simple, but it's so challenging. I'm like, well,
Right.
yeah, when's the last time that you were on your hands and knees? How often do you get down onto the floor and back up? Aside from, when you finally do get down for gardening, you're there for like an hour at a time and then you get up, but then you're not doing it again until you come back the following week to weed again. So it's essentially instilling this understanding of not just for us, but also for our clients that like, hey, this is the purpose of what we're doing. And providing that education to your client to say like, hey, what I say to my clients is, hey, move like a kindergartner.
Hmm.
Kindergartners are up on their feet and they're down and they're rolling and they're doing all sorts of different movements. They're never walking in a straight line. They kind of like turn around and they'll, stumble and they'll stand back up again. There's so much movement happening with a kindergartner. Now, obviously, if you're injured or you're, haven't been doing that in a while, I'm not gonna have you go straight to that right away. But having the baseline understanding of based on how much a kindergartner moves and how much movement that they are learning and experimenting with, approaching it with that sort of perspective, that sort of attitude, gives people more of an understanding, gives them more buy-in to why they need to do these specific exercises as opposed to just like rote memorizing the exercises that you give them. Now they're going to see opportunities of, oh, here's one way I can be a little bit more experimental or playful with this human movement. Here's another way I
Right.
can maybe try to get down onto hands and knees or onto my belly like a kindergartner would. Here's where I get to see, these opportunities to experiment with human movement. And
Yeah.
so it
Yeah.
allows them to see things creatively as well as it encourages us as the clinicians to work with them creatively and getting them to explore and experiment and to train those specific human movements.
Right. And let's not overthink it. I'll give you a very specific example. I had one yesterday at a new eval, if you want to call it an eval in our world, right? This person came in. He was a hard worker. He does a lot of construction work. He builds aquariums, plumbing, very awkward positions. Um, he's an immigrant, so like the language barrier. Luckily, I speak Spanish, so he was like, "You speak Spanish?" I'm like, "I sure do." And then, "Hola, hermano, cómo estamos?" And then we got to chat and everything. But in his perspective of like how his body functioned, he's just a hard worker. They just work hard. That's it. But he is an acute back pain. He couldn't even bend, right? He couldn't even get past his knees, right? And he had been to a chiropractor, he'd been to another chiropractor and a doctor, and he was just like, no, but they just cracked me and they said I'm alive, but I'm still hurting. And then I felt a little better, but then the last time I went, like I couldn't move for like a week, and I haven't been able to work. And I'm like, okay, let's just work. So it's simple, traditional assessment. Let me see your range of motion. How much can you bend? Side bend, everything. He's like, and he was very protected, very stiff. So my creativity, I'm not thinking like, let me write all this down and put the EMR. I don't do that. I'm just like, okay, I know where he's at, and I know that if I get that nervous system calm, if I get him more stable, and I get his body to release the protection patterns, then I'll be able to get him move better, right? Because he's not in some severe acute pain. It was acute, but I knew that if I can clear that protection pattern, then he should be able to move fine, you know? And that's exactly what we did. So at first, I tried to just do some simple breathing. Uh, I teach some breathing techniques that try to get you into a more parasympathetic state. But at the same time, we can almost restore your posture based on how I put you in a position to engage your diaphragm, well, just to breathe normally. But then that creates a position that your body senses that it has pressure protection, right? As far as like how we're supposed to work within the core. And then the body will start to release a little bit. But he was having a hard time with that. He was just like, he was trying too hard. He came from tension, hard worker, overusing his body for such a long time that it created more and more tension for him to perform the heavy lifting that he does. So I was
Mm.
like, and even the breathing, even just simple breathing, he was really tense. What am I doing? Okay, how do I get this guy to relax? So I said, hey, you know how when we're babies, we go through these stages, and he was like, yeah. I was like, you have a daughter? He's like, yes. And I said, well, remember how at first we're like really floppy? We have a lot of mobility, and then the first thing we do is breathe, and that starts the training of our core. And I have showed him this diagram that I have in my clinic. And so he was understanding. It's like, yeah, because he has a kid and he's been a kid before. So he started to understand what we were trying to do. And I said, so it might seem weird, but we're going to take you back into a position where your body should be able to let go. And we just put him, I just put him quadruped, and we did rocking. Sarah, do you remember rocking? You know, babies rock. Okay.
I do. I
We
know.
didn't
You have
worry.
it all.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't worry about breathing, nothing. I said, just get on all fours. And he was stiff. And I'm like, okay, now I just need you to just sit there and just feel your body in that position. Your body, your nervous system's going to remember what this is. And I just need you just to rock your body back and forward and then pull yourself forward, rock back, pull yourself forward. Because when we're babies, we don't shift forward. We actually like pull ourselves forward using serratus and all these different muscles, right? We're not consciously thinking that. It's just how our body does it. So by doing that, he started to get that lumbar flexion again. He started to get that pelvic tilt that he couldn't get with any of the cues that I gave him. And I'm pretty quick. I move fast. As soon as I see that they're not getting it, I'm not gonna try to like be the expert and give them all these uh expert cues. I'm just like, all right, how can I use my creativity to put him in a position where I can give him a task where then the nervous system does what it's supposed to do naturally without a lot of my input. So that's all we did. We did some rocking, and then once he got it, he was just rocking us. Not bad. It feels pretty good. Okay, now let's focus on the breathing. When you rock back, just breathe out. Stay there for a little bit. Just breathe, let it in, and then come back in. Right. So we did that for like maybe like 3-4 minutes. I said, all right, let's get up. He got up. Guess what? He had full range of motion. Right. He's like, oh, it doesn't hurt as bad. I'm like, wonderful. So then I gave him even. Then the next homework was I usually use balloons to help people basically to reset their breathing system. So it's just blowing up a balloon. Hey, it's playful. It's what we do as kids. If you can't do it, that tells me something about that core system. If
Mm.
and if they can, then I'm like, great. Here's a couple balloons, 3 or 4. I just need you to blow up a balloon and do your rocking. That's all I gave him, and he was super grateful. He walked out walking like a human, not like a cowboy. You know how they walk really stiff and everything like that. He had full range of motion. He was in less pain, and we did rocking, right? We just tapped into that system. But I had to get creative because he was so stiff and so guarded that I was, instead of me like, I didn't go into manual, I didn't do into dry needling. I was like, how do I treat his nervous system first? Because I want to empower him to be able to do what he needs to do at home the other 23 hours that he's not with me, or 24 hours, whatever. Because sometimes my treatments are 20 minutes long. Because if you give them the result, they value that more. Then
Yeah,
what do I need to do exercises for 60 minutes? Make sense? So
yeah.
that's a quick example on like, look, something as simple as rocking can get somebody full range of motion, within 10 minutes. And they're grateful, they move better, and now they trust their body again. And their homework empowerment program, as I call it, is super simple. And he's like, oh yeah, I can do that, man. I'm going to do it all the time. I'm like, great. So simple example, easy to do.
Absolutely. And again, the key with this is just to keep it simple. A lot of
Right.
times we think like, oh, I gotta get really, like Santi said, I gotta get really good with my expert cues, and we kind of inundate them and overwhelm them with a bunch of
Right.
verbal cues. Oh, do this, do that, and don't do this, and hold on, relax, and reset, and that just kind of revs up the nervous system more. But, we have naturally been built and crafted to learn these developmental motor patterns and motor skills when we're, babies and growing into
Yeah.
toddlers and learning all of these. So we can trust in the wiring that's already been built in for us, and just
Right.
going back to the basics, and the body will figure it out. In a similar way, I just did an eval with this week as well. And her main thing was like, yeah, rolling's tough. And so, we got her in that position and saw what she was doing, and she was really struggling to try to turn from side to side without her low back pain. And we just spent a little bit of time in hook lying, just breathing and having her feel her abdominals contract if she really, really, really exhaled, and the way that it built up that pressure when she maintained that engagement when she inhaled. And I just had her in different positions as if we were rolling, practicing
Mm-hmm.
that breathing there. And, that was really the only thing I did with her, was just getting in these like incremental positions of rolling, maintaining it with breathing. And by the end of it, she rolled out of off of the table and sat up, and she had this really confused look on her face.
Yeah.
I was like, you okay? She's like, it didn't hurt. And all we
Yes.
did was rolling around, So again, it can be as simple as that. And then you just keep building on those foundations. Because if we don't have those foundations set, just like if we're not learning how to crawl and how to push and rock and,
Mm-hmm.
shift our weight and roll, then those are the same kids that take a long, long time to stand up and walk, because they don't have, or even to sit up, because they don't have that core control and that
Control,
base,
right?
those basic foundations. So go back to basics, keep it
Yeah.
simple, and focus on your natural development of human movement. to get your results with your clients faster. And you don't have
Exactly.
to work quite as hard.
Exactly. And honestly, if you have some cases where you're like, how can I apply this? I'm not sure. Just put it in the comments. That way, then I'll do a video. I'll do a quick little video and say, like, look, think about this. For example, um, I know Sarah and I were talking about one of her cases with shoulders, and there are times that it's like, why would we give them endless amounts of like external, internal therapy and exercises when their shoulder hurts when they are rolling to get up out of bed, right?
Mhm.
So that's useless. I don't. It's to me, it's just useless, right? And where I'm gonna be very real here when we're wasting our time and our clients' time by doing just stupid exercises that maybe fine, but if you're not trying to be standard, we got to do the good stuff, right?
Mhm.
So if I have somebody that has pain with getting up out of bed, there's some internal and it's a close chain exercise, right? So I'm doing open chain like this 30 times with the red and then the green and the blue, and I still have pain. But when I'm laying down, I'm I'm doing internal and external rotation of a still shoulder while my body moves on that shoulder, right? So that's what I'll do. And you can break it down. Just break down that, put them in side sitting. It's like a side plank, but I call it a human plank. Just get them in a side plank, like if they're just side sitting or at the edge of the bed, and have them go there and then push off, and then kind of do that. Oh, that's not hurting. And then, okay, now let's get on your side, almost like you're just like laying down on your side. I always say that, show me your modeling moves. Like we're in a photo shoot. I'm like, yeah, just get on your side. Show me some good modeling moves. And they laugh a little bit, but then they're loading their shoulder. And then I have them reach for the other arm. I say, reach for my hand. So I'll stand far away. So they have to reach and internally rotate over that shoulder and then externally rotate. And I'll just give them different cues of where to reach for me. And then I'm like, how's your shoulder feel? Like, you know what? It's not hurting. And then we put it all together. Then I'm like, okay, lie down, go on your side, push yourself up, and then roll up out of bed. And they're like, it didn't hurt. So again, like Sarah was talking about, keep it simple and tap into those foundations, and you'll get more out of that, let's say, nervous system and human movement than you do by doing flexion, abduction, internal rotation, external rotation, TheraBand, bicep curls, tricep. It's like, that's cool if you're trying to build some muscle or whatever, but like it's
Yeah,
just a waste of time when it comes to function. So
yeah, absolutely. So, like Santi mentioned, if you guys have any questions on how to apply this with your clients, or if you have any other questions that you want us to talk about on a video, drop it in the comments below or just post it in the group. Let's get some conversations going so we can make sure that all y'all keep leveling up just like we're trying to help our clients level up. Okay, other than that, have a good rest of your evening. I'm
yeah,
Santi, this physio, or I'm Santi. I'm Sarah.
yeah.
I'm so used to these. I'm Sarah, the physio sensei, and this is.
And I'm Santi, the physio sensei, and all of my friends here in Florida, stay safe in the storm that's
Yes,
about to slam into us today.
please do.
Um, well, I'm pretty good where we're at. We're not gonna get, I mean, we'll get some winds and things like that and tree downs and stuff like that, but not like my friends on the West Coast that are gonna get slammed. So everybody stay safe. And then,
Yes,
like I said, just use this platform to go ahead and ask questions, and let's get everybody becoming primary care physical therapists and better therapists out there so we can help more people.
absolutely. Stay safe, everyone. Have a good night.
Bye.